Hi, I'm Carole Massey and I'm delighted to be taking part in Search Press's Virtual Spring Fair 2021. My latest book, The Beginner's Guide to Drawing Portraits, has recently been published, and I'm going to show you a demonstration in charcoal of a delightful hairy man. Right, so let's get started. I'm working on a medium surface cartridge paper, and you've got my Willow charcoal here, a very fine stick of charcoal, slightly thicker one and a thicker one still. And I'm using a Kneadable eraser. It looks very dirty as it's been much used on other charcoal drawings, but if you try it out to see if there's any dirt coming off it, you can see that there isn't. So it's quite okay to use. And I'm also using an electric eraser, which spins around at the top here, and it's quite useful for very, very fine highlights, but I probably won't use that so much. Okay, let's clear the decks and get drawing. I'm going to start, as I would with any portrait, and looking at the angle of the eye line. Sometimes it's an idea to actually put a longer, straighter edge on it, and in this case we can see that it's the angle. If I did a line through the centre of the iris, in other words through the pupils, this is going to be straight. Sometimes the angle is tipping up or tipping down depending on the angle of the head that you're drawing. In this case it's straight. If I want to, I can draw a line on my paper just to establish that, and then decide where how the distance I want between the pupils. I want to make it a little bit bigger than it is on the photograph. If I were to do it same size, it would be only that big, but I want to make it a little bit bigger, so I'm going to have them about that far apart. And then the first thing to do is to draw the eyes. So the upper lid, sometimes there's a sloping down, but from the corner of the eye to the tear duct, the eyes can slope down or they can slope up. Again, in this case, it's fairly straight across. So if we think of the tear duct as here and the outer eye here, let's look at that one, maybe tear duct there and then the outer eye there. The distance between the eyes here is usually the same width as the eye itself, but on older eyes, because the eyelids tend to thicken, the eyes tend to get a little bit smaller in comparison to that distance. But anyhow, let's start by drawing the upper lid, sloping up, angling down. The upper lid is cutting through the sphere of the iris. We've got a dark line, the lower lid, and then there's a line of light, and then there's another line. Let's just get that in first, and let's just put the other one in. Making up, flattening out on that side. Get the iris in. Tear duct. Quite a dark line, that lower lid, and that second line there. I'm just going to put the pupil in the middle and then just shade in and just leave a little bit of light on the right hand side there. Also going to put in the bridge of the nose. We can see a little bit more. His head is very slightly turned to the right, because from here, the bridge of the nose to the tear duct is slightly more on that side than it is on that side. So the bridge of the nose is shifted slightly right of centre. And let's think about the structure around the eyes. So we've got the eye. It's sort of got a rather strangely shaped eyebrow, not a consistent shape. It's quite deep. Let's go over to this one, and so we've got a line of shadow coming across, which sort of comes into the eyebrow. The eyebrows are just sort of dark. It's a fairly uneven shape. There's also the bridge of the nose across there will also be slightly in shadow. Throwing the band down the centre of the nose into highlight. Okay, before we get involved with the nose, let's just finish off a little bit more to the eyes. And he's got these sort of sacs under the eye that slope down and round. Okay, this side, this. Then the side of his nose, this side here, is in shadow. Come down to the nostril, a little bit of shadow on this side. Okay, what we want to do is next establish the base of the nose. So what we're going to do to measure the length of the nose, because it's a difficult distance to measure. This is not really a hard point, so we can't say it's so long. So we're going to do a triangulation process. We're going to go from the middle of the pupil down to the base of the nose on one way and then the other way. And the idea is to keep your shoulder and your elbow fairly stiff. And I use a piece of charcoal. If that's not long enough, use a pencil and measure that angle and then move across without twisting one way or the other. So we're going to move across, and if necessary you could do a line down there. I normally put a line in and then check it. Yes, that's more or less right. And then we do the same the other way. And this is a method, in fact all these methods I use are the same, whether working from a photograph or working from a life model. So that's the base of the nose. So what I want to do now is measure the width of the nose, how wide it is. We've got this length now. You want to measure out the width of it. So I'm going to do a vertical line up from the outer edge of his nostril up, which comes under the tear duct. So if I say the tear duct's there, that's going to be the outside that way, and do the same the other way, slightly over that way. There. So we know that the base of the nose is here, and we can see that the nostrils actually slope up. So we've got a rounded tip to the nose, and then we are sloping up. And then that nostril is sloping back in that there, and then that's incorporated into his cheek there. Let's do the same this way. That's coming up. That's the width. Coming back. Let's just take out that. That line's a bit confusing now. Just take that out, my measuring line. Okay, so now what I want to do is to get this distance here, to get this, if you like, the side of the face in now on either side. So again, looking at here, this distance between the corner of the eye and the edge of the head here, the temple, is going to be slightly wider than this side. So going from the corner here, probably I'll start with that and see how that looks. So does that sort of shape there, that negative shape, look about right? I think it is. It's quite full there, but I haven't got any shading in yet, so let's put that one there. And then look on this side, slightly narrower on this side. And this is coming in, got this shape, right where you've got the highlight on the cheekbone there and this shadow underneath, which is sort of coming in. Let's just put that in. Got a very nice form around here, around the eye socket and the cheekbone. And then this soft shading into the cheek. Let's just do a little bit of soften that in, and then just go back and do this side. Again, coming in here around the cheekbone. Let's just continue that shading which we stopped halfway down his nose to get the length of his nose. Bring it in, a little bit of shading there. And you could say that the tip of his nose, the tip of his nose is actually up here somewhere where the highlight is. And let's just start off the moustache. There's sort of like a little triangle of skin in there. It's quite dark under his nose. Charcoal is a nice medium to use. It's quite forgiving. You can, as you can see, you can push it around. You know, if something's not right here, if I thought this was too wide, I was actually looking at it now, it probably is a bit wide. I can take it off with a rubber. I can redraw with a rubber, take things out if they're not right, or again put them back in. It is very sort of malleable. It's very, very smudgeable. So that has its pros and cons. You just have to be a little bit careful when you're working over it that you don't smudge something that you've just taken pains to get in correctly, and then you put your hand through it and you smudge it all, so that can be very annoying. Right, so let's get can't really see his top lip at all. We can see this sort of darker area where his mouth is slightly open, and then coming into the bottom lip, defined by that dark line around there. Let's just smudge that in a little bit to get that darker tone, and it's coming, dark's coming in and around and under edge of the moustache there. Again, it's always a question of, particularly with a monochrome portrait, is light against dark and dark against light. Just keep that little maxim in the back of your mind to guide you through it when you're getting a bit lost, thinking, why isn't that working? If something doesn't look light enough, it's because the tones around it aren't dark enough. Then we come into this darker area here, which is presumably, I think predominantly his chin's under that bit there. That's why it's a bit darker. So let's just define this beard a little bit, maybe just draw in where I think the edges of the beard are going to be, sort of down here. This is his side whiskers, which are again lighter. And this side, coming into the end of the moustache. And the beard's going to trail down here. That's sort of going to be the edges of the beard. Like I've got a Father Christmas beard at the moment. But let's just put a little bit of tone. Let's just use this broader one here and just get in a little bit of tone. We'll do a little bit to that later. Okay, so now I want to move on to the top bit. I'm in danger of smudging what I've done, so I'm going to just take a piece of paper, and this is actually called glassine, so it's specifically for covering pastels. And it's quite nice because I can see through it, so I can refer back to what I've already done, but I won't smudge. Hopefully I won't smudge what I've just been drawing. So the next thing to do is establish the depth of his forehead. Again, so again, it's a measuring process. You know, very often people think that portrait is just a question of looking at things and drawing it, but our eye often, well, it's not our eye that betrays us really, it's our brain, because our brain says, no, that should be a certain length or that should be a certain shape, and it sort of takes over what we actually draw. But so we have to try and draw what we see and not what we think we see. So again, measuring is a good way of being more accurate rather than just guessing. So if I were to measure this, I might want to say what's the distance between the pupil to the hairline, and then compare that maybe to another distance on the face. So let's do that unit first. So hairline, top of the charcoal on the hairline, and then put my thumb nail where the pupil is, and then take that and then maybe measure that against, let's have a look, that's pupil down to the sort of this area of the mouth here. So if I do it here, start by doing this measurement first, pupil down to, just get that accurately, pupil down to that area of the mouth, and then go from there up to there. So my hairline is going to be there. And it's sort of, this division sort of starts about here, so it's about the right place. Okay, so that's, so we've got, we go to the right hand side first, and coming round, head quite dark in here. We've got this, the temple is shaped in, and then the hair is coming round, lighter there, dark up there, dark curve, and quite dark across the forehead as well. Got lighter wisps coming up. I think I'm going to come here and start on here and come up. If I start here and come down, I might end up in the wrong place. So let me establish the line of the hair here. So that's his eyebrow coming up there. Hair is coming here. So we're coming up and across and round. This one's coming, if I just get the general flow of the hair and up and over, let's just, that's coming up, let's get the parting is going back up to that sort of area. It's quite nice just to get the flow of the hair. Some is light, some is dark. Lighter patch here, darker patch in the middle there. Let me just get that. So I'm using the thicker Willow now on its broad side, just to sort of block in a few darker tones. A little bit of texture to this medium surface cartridge paper, and it just picking up a little bit of texture there, which is quite helpful. Okay, let me just put a little bit of tone in his forehead. Just going to smudge that in. Looking at the shape of his forehead now, I think I've got this. This is a little bit high, so this needs to come down a bit more. And get a little bit more shading in. So I can block it in parts to get a darker tone, or like a mid-tone, and then work back in with the charcoal to blacken some parts, get some parts much darker. Okay, let's move over to the right hand side, just do a bit to that. What do we want to do here? It's got these fairly wispy bits coming out here. It sort of needs to be, get the texture of the hair. We don't make him want to look as if he's just come out of the hairdressers. It doesn't need to be coiffured, so you don't need to spend too much on it. You know, you want to retain this sort of the roughness of the character. So just sort of building it up all round a little bit more. It's a bit darker. Looks a little bit lumpy here, doesn't he? Let's just take that back a bit. Just lost his cheekbones there. The tones keep changing. As soon as you put one dark area in, another area doesn't look dark enough, etc. So the question is doing too much without doing enough without doing too much, basically. Got a little bit darker in here so that his beard shows up. So you've got that darker patch behind here, and these wispy hairs coming out here. Let's get his shoulder line in too while we're down this area. So he can't quite make out what's going on here. I think he's got some sort of collar to his jacket. Quite a nice jacket on, sort of tweedy texture with looks like a jerkin over the top. But the shoulder line is coming. If I follow that line of his mouth down, it's sort of that sort of angle, his shoulder line. So if I do something like that, and his shoulder line is going to be here. And we could just, for this sketch, I'm not going to do too much detail in his clothing, but it's something that you could put a little bit of detail in if you wanted to. But in this case, I'm just going to put a darker patch just to make sure the beard shows up. A bit more hair down there. Coming over to this side. Okay, the shoulder line is this way, and let's just block that in a little bit. Soften that a bit so it's not too hard and chunky. Right, now let's have a look. Let's just do a little bit more to his hair, just get that in. What else did I think? That's here. A bit darker on the sort of darker towards the back, towards the outline, just give a bit of solidity to the back of his head. Maybe in here. Just a bit hatching in there, just to sort of bring that all together a little bit. Make it just slightly darker and sort of more solid mass at the back there. Okay, let's just go in and refine some of the features now. Let's go back in and just do a little bit more to the eyes. So we've got a slight darkening around here. And just picking up little bits, smaller details now, just to a bit more detail in. So got back to his eyebrows, just a bit darker. Shade that in. he's got you can see the sort of, if you look at it, in my book I deal with the planes of the head, and you can see that this plane across the front of the forehead, here you can see this line of dark coming, alternatively a line of light, a sort of patch of light, a sort of rectangle of light across his head here, which I haven't quite got yet. So just going to darken that a little bit at the sides again, which should make that hair stand out a bit more. While I'm there, let's just take the eraser and just draw a little bit in here. Some slightly lighter patches coming through. So I'm drawing with the rubber, and then I'm moving it around so that the charcoal I've just put on it will be sort of incorporated in the eraser, and then I can just get a clean bit and draw with it. You see, if I shape it to a nice sharp point, I can actually draw right back in there. Get a few wispy hairs in here. On the other hand, if I use the bigger one, what I can do is I can just dab it here and get that light, sort of soft, rounder light patch up there on his forehead. He's got a few lines, give him a bit of character across his forehead. If they look a bit too much, you can take them out a bit, or what we can do is get a few lighter highlights through there too. Back to his eyes, what I was doing. So we've got darkened that there. You just need to get a bit darker in there, and just a little bit darker in his eyes. Just darkening that above his eyebrows has now really made his eyes stand out much more, which is what I wanted. So let's just get a little bit more in here. That nice line of shading around his cheekbone here, and just knock that back a little bit. That's a bit too, needs to be a bit darkened here. It needs to recede a bit more, not without losing his cheek lines there, a bit darker here. Okay, let's just concentrate on his moustache now. Actually, before I lose his eyes, I can see I've got one pupil there that is quite a bit bigger than the other one. Let's use my electric eraser and just take away a little bit of that pupil. While I'm there, we can just get the highlight in. And then redraw the dark bits. Right, let's just redraw that one there. That's better. Obviously with charcoal it's quite a broad medium, so you're not going to get the same definition you do with a pencil, but on the other hand you can see how easy it has been to put in shading with the charcoal. Now, where was I heading? I was heading back down to the nose here now, so I just need to do a little bit more to this because I lost it, the sort of definition of his nose a little bit. That's better. This side, let's just clean up that shadow there. Make that bland of light a little lighter. Pick out some highlights. And then come down to his beard. He's got a little bit black in the middle here, so let's just get some of those wispy bits coming down a bit better. Okay, just do a little bit more definition in his beard. Obviously, it's one of those areas where you could do a lot or a little to it. I mean, it reads as a nice big woolly wispy beard now. So my little inner voice is saying to me, maybe it's time to stop. Just to get a little bit of detail in there. Perhaps we could just put some shading down there so that you can just brings out the beard a little bit. So we've got some beach or something down there. Sometimes just a bit of loose indication, loose drawing, just get a bit of character to it. All I need to do is just to clean up any areas that have got a bit smudged, check any final highlights I want to put in, and without fiddling too much with it, I think that is the completed portrait. Well, there we are. There's my charcoal portrait finished. I hope you found it interesting and inspiring. Do have a look at my book. There's many more examples in there. 144 pages packed with pencil portraits, some in pen, some in charcoal, soft pastels, coloured pencils as well. Lots and lots of examples for you to try. So happy portraiture, everybody.